What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. It's the 1st of November. I hope you had an amazing Halloween, that you didn't party too hard, and that you're up this morning ready to get going. And we got a great lesson here today, going through basically our open house checklist. And this is the checklist that I use before every single one of my open houses. And even I give to agents, that are going to be hosting open houses for me. So that way, they have kind of a process to make sure that everything gets done the right way, and, that nothing's forgotten. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Welcome, everybody. I see everyone jumping on the stream. So let's go ahead and chime in. Where are you guys tuning in from? Who's on the stream? Let me know who's hanging out with me this morning. It's good to see everyone. We already got a lot of people jumping in here. So welcome. All right, here we go. There we go. Got Ohio Real Estate. Good to see you. Nice. I'm sure it's probably getting pretty cold up there. Starting to, maybe. I know that's Halloween is always when it starts to feel like it's starting to get cold down here. So it's got to be getting cold up there. We got somebody tuning in here from Sacramento, California. All right. Sandra from Tennessee. All right. Nice. Kyle, good to see you. Good to see you, Kyle. It was great seeing you the other day. All right. Well, hey, and today is a super special day for me in particular. My partner and I, Blake Salmons, a good buddy of mine since high school, just released our brand new course. It is now officially live and available for people to go purchase. That was super exciting. We spent literally probably the last 2 months, just nonstop, coming up with the framework, recording lessons. We've got like 37 or 38 downloadable resources, including our buyer presentation, our listing presentation. So making all of those resources, making the videos, editing them, all of that stuff. And we had, PowerPoint presentation for the whole thing. It was a lot of work. And so it all finally came together and it launched this morning. So super excited. We've already had quite a bit of people signed up for it already. There's a very good special going on right now. Here, let me put the banner on the bottom where it's 50% off. So, normally it's going to be $297, but it's under $150 just today only because of the launch special. And so if you want to pick that up, go check it out. If you think you know of another agent that needs it, let them know. But basically, it's geared towards newer agents in their first 2 years of the business. It helps you to kind of establish a framework, get organized, kind of just have that right foundation to grow your business. We talk about lead sources. We talk about working with buyers and with sellers. We also have in there stuff about like CMAs, open houses, like what we're going to be covering today. In fact, the download that I've got here that we're going to be using today comes out of the course. So this is one of the 38 resources that we've got in there. So if you like what we're going to cover today, just know that in that course, you get a lot more of these types of things. And for $150 right now, if you get it before midnight tonight, Pacific Standard Time. So definitely go check that out, agentflightacademy.com. And we've got a 30-day money back guarantee. Blake and I worked super hard on this course. So, obviously we are very confident you're going to find value in it. And, if you don't, for whatever reason, we'll give you your money back, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So, all right, let's see here. We've got, Ohio. Sounds like a great gift for a newbie to EXP. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great gift for any new agent. Blake, the reason why I partnered with him is just because he is a newer agent. He's only been in the business about 2 years. Previously, he was a teacher for the past decade. He actually developed curriculum for teachers. And so he helped me just kind of learn about how the right way to structure a course is, which was really fun. But also his 2 years in real estate, he's absolutely crushed it. He's on track to doing over 150K in GCI in his second year. And so it's cool to partner with somebody who is still very fresh and kind of, seeing things as a new agent. But then combining that with my kind of 15 years in the business. And so I think it's a really, really good program. So anyways, I don't want to spend too much more time on that. I do want to jump into the lesson today, which is our open house checklist. And I am going to give this resource to you So I guess probably the easiest way for me to do it is I'll put a link to download it into the comments section. So if you want to check back after we complete this video, you can go ahead and grab that for free. And yeah, that way you'll have my exact checklist that we use. So cool. Well, hey, real quick before we get started, I want to see, if you guys have any suggestions or any tips or any things that like are unique to you with open houses. Let me know that in the comments so I can kind of pull them up on screen, because some of the stuff you may say, and maybe I've got it on my checklist, but if you don't, who knows? I can always edit and change this checklist. Would love to add some stuff. So let's go ahead and get some good dialogue going with regards to open houses and just anything that you do that you found success with in open houses, or things you've heard of that maybe you want to try. So you don't have to have necessarily done it, but just good ideas that you've heard. Throw them in the comments, and then feel free to share any kind of discussion regarding my checklist. If there's any things you've tried that either did work or didn't work in the checklist. So, all right, I'm going to pull it up on screen here. Let's go ahead and grab it. There we go. Do it like this one here. And so first off, as you can see here, this is, it's pretty robust. I would say there's some stuff in here that I guess, I didn't put in there. I just know to kind of do it, like some of the easier stuff, but you'll see what I mean as we go through it. But in general, this is basically starting from the time where like there's either a listing and you're hosting it for another agent, or maybe you're hosting it for yourself for a listing that you've got. And so hopefully the house, like, I'm not putting in the stuff about like having the seller repair items or things like that for the most part, because that's the stuff that should be done before the house is even listed and on the market. So this is assuming that, the house is already show ready, and you've done all the kind of pre-listing stuff with the seller, or at least the listing agent has done that with the seller. And now you're just kind of reiterating a few things to make sure that the open house is ready to rock and roll. So, of course, the first thing, these are all things you're going to do before the open house, is to clean and straighten it up. Ideally, I always like to tell the seller this or the listing agent this, but I also usually try to get to the home early and be prepared myself in case I need to straighten a few things up or tidy things up. In fact, I even bring a few resources with me just in case like I need to blow off the front porch. So I've got like a little mini blower that I bring. I'll bring a broom, just that way I'm not like going through their house trying to find a broom or anything like that if I got to sweep something up. So just a few basic things like that. It's always good to kind of bring with you to the open house if you think you especially might need to kind of clean it up or whatever. But this can also include, I know it's kind of gross, but sometimes like the toilets, like if they're not clean, I mean, bring like a little toilet bowl, or hope, toilet bowl cleaner, or hope that they have one, right? Make sure all the toilets are flushed. I mean, simple stuff like that, just kind of last minute things. Of course, you want to have that all cleaned up, and you can't just always assume that every seller is going to have it looking that way when you come over to do an open house. So come prepared, make sure that it's looking good. Light bulbs. I also keep extra light bulbs with me, just, some basic light bulbs. So that way, if light bulbs are out inside of the house, I can quickly just, replace some of them, but also ask the seller beforehand, to make sure all the light bulbs are working and are able to be turned on. Open all of the blinds. That's kind of another one that I don't have in there, but you want as much light to come inside that house as possible. Don't have it be dark. And, when somebody comes in, it's just like, kind of a dead environment, dead atmosphere. You want it to look bright, airy, open, fun, all that good stuff. Okay. So you're also going to want to get a copy of certain documents, because you're going to get asked this stuff very frequently when you have guests arriving at your open house. And so make sure that you've prepared the seller to give this stuff to you beforehand. So this can include tax documents. So like their most recent tax statement, I like to have on hand, printed out. Utility information. So, water bill, electric bill, gas, if they've got it, have those printed out. That way you can kind of see the last 12 months, what the bills have looked like. And, if buyers potentially have questions about it, you can let them know that, especially on a house that has like solar panels or something. You want to show off the benefits of the solar panels that the house may have. HOA documents. So, print out a copy of the HOA deeds, covenants, and restrictions, because you may get questions like, well, hey, can we park an RV here? Can we do this, paint our house a certain color? Can we, whatever. Or maybe you don't even get questions, but somebody's just curious. And if you have those on hand, ready to go, then that'll help answer people's questions. And of course, makes you look more professional. Have extra copies of the seller disclosure printed out and ready to go. And of course, surveys, because people are always going to ask, does the home have room for a pool? Does it have, this or that? Like what's buried underneath, like as far as like underground lines and, pipes and stuff like that. So you want to make sure easements, all that good stuff, that you have a copy of the survey as well. So those are the main documents that you want to have printed. You can even put them as part of like a binder, put them in kind of a plastic sleeve, put it in a binder, have it all ready to go. Most of this stuff, like seller disclosure, I'll have extra copies just so I can give people. The HOA stuff, I probably won't have an extra copy of that because a lot of times those are pretty big packages. But as long as you have it in a binder, that should be fine. Same thing with like tax and utility stuff. I won't have that, but surveys and seller disclosures, I'll have extra copies. So I'll have one in a binder and I'll have extra copies if people want to take them with them. Okay. Valuables and personal items stored. So making sure you tell the seller, like, hey, make sure you don't have any cash just sitting out, guns, anything like that, might be dangerous. Or, like even sometimes like personal items, like pictures or stuff, if just anything they wouldn't want, to break or to happen to walk away, if it's like a family heirloom, any of that kind of stuff, like I just say, hey, don't risk it. Just put them away, take them with you, do something with them, so they're not out and about. Make sure that you have, medications. Good point, Pam. She says no medications. Yeah, that's also a great one. Make sure that they've, locked away their medications. Very good point. Because again, if you're getting a lot of people through the door, you're not going to be able to watch every single person who's walking through the house. And I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes there are people that like specifically target open houses to do certain things, bad things. And they'll look for busy and opportunities where they can, get in and not be seen doing certain things. So I've personally not have anything negative happen in mine, but I hear of it happening. So, I mean, it definitely is something you want to be prepared for. Let the sellers know. So, cool. Let's see here. We got another tip. I don't know who this one is, just this Facebook user, but I always have a lender with me so I can leave to show nearby homes too. That's a great point. I like to have a lender with me too. I can't say that I always do, but I do try to set it up to where I do have a lender with me. But I've never thought to leave to go show nearby homes, although that is important as well. I usually will have some nearby homes set up or like, scheduled to be able to show them after the open house. That way, if I do get somebody that comes through and let's say they're a hot person, a hot client, I can basically tell them, hey, you know what, actually, if you're free this afternoon, or if you're free here in a little bit, when this thing shuts down, I can go with you and go show you, this home and this home, because they're, just down the street. And so sometimes it's good to do that, especially if you know that you're going to have a lot of people coming through the door and maybe they're, you got a couple other listings in that neighborhood. It's not a bad idea to have that kind of set up and ready to do. So that way, like right after your open house, you can go to those and potentially bring some clients with you. So I love that idea though about the lender. Also just having a lender there so they can pre-qualify clients on the spot, or even just, if the client doesn't want to necessarily give them their information, they can be there to answer questions, give them, ballpark figures, that kind of stuff. It's always good to have the lender there as well. Cool. All right. Let's see here. So next up, is your marketing materials. Make sure you have your marketing materials ready, right? This can include folders, like having branded folders for you or for your business. Of course, business cards, very important. And then flyers for that home, but also flyers for maybe some other homes in the neighborhood, right, that are available. So like you could, if you had a neighborhood and it had 6 available listings, even if they're not all yours, just go ahead and put the one that you're doing an open house on, at the top, and say, look, other available listings down below, below that. So you might have 4 or 5 other ones and just say, hey, look, I'd love to show you any of these, right? And you could pass that flyer out to people. So it doesn't just have to be on the listing that you're hosting, right? Um, let's see. Advertise on the MLS, social media, and listing sites. So Zillow, Realtor.com, etc. And what's important to note here is that you're going to have to, especially if you don't have the listing yourself, if you're actually doing this for another agent, you're going to have to coordinate with that agent to make sure they input that there is an open house in the MLS. So that way that can get syndicated over to Zillow and Realtor.com. And so you're just want to, because you, as somebody who may just be hosting it for that agent, won't be able to manipulate that. Of course, you can put that up on your social media and all that kind of stuff yourself, but on some of those portal sites and of course on the MLS, the actual listing agent will need to do that. So you're going to want to make sure that they have done that, as soon as possible, as early as possible. So get with them on that. Let's see. Next up, put out open house signs and a feather flag potentially. So here's my thought on this is what I like to do is, either a couple nights before or at least the night before, I will get on Google Maps. I will look at where the house is in relation to like the major cross streets and things like that. And I kind of just strategically figure out where I'm going to place signs for the open house to direct people to the open house. No matter how well you do of a job of promoting it on social media, Zillow, all that kind of stuff, still a very, significant source of your traffic through that open house is going to be just driving traffic, right? People who are driving by, people who are in the neighborhood, that kind of stuff. And so you need to make sure that you have a good amount of signs out there. So, I always like to have about 50 signs on hand. I don't use 50 signs necessarily at every single one of my open houses, but I've always got about 50 signs. And you're probably thinking like, why do you need 50? Well, because for me, I've got mine printed directly with the directional arrows on them, right? So you can have, a straight ahead, you can have left, right, all that kind of stuff. And so that's how I have my signs. And so 50 is actually not that many, right? Because you're going to probably have, 20 straights. You might have, 15 left, 15 right, that type of thing. And having them double-sided is important as well, because, that way people can see them from either way and still get to where they need to go. But you have to remember though, too, of the directions, right? So if it's either way, make sure they're pointed the right way. Okay. So I'll get on the night before, I'll kind of map out and say like, okay, based on this intersection, I need to send somebody right here and I need to send somebody left here. I'm going to put a straight here because, there's a long stretch of road that, I'm going to make sure that they're knowing that they're on the right track. And so I kind of can start mapping that out, kind of put little pins. I'll print the map out. I'll start drawing on it with little pins of where each of these signs are going. And that's pretty much it. And then at like the main intersections, or where there's a lot of, traffic and congestion and things like that, I try and incorporate some kind of movement into my signs. So what I mean by that is either you can use balloons, you can use like little streamers that hang down, all that kind of stuff, anything that just catches people's eyes, right? Like a pinwheel, you'll see pinwheels sometimes. So I'm not putting that on every single one of mine, but definitely on all the ones that are like in, the kind of most trafficked areas, because you're competing, for their eyeballs with a lot of things that might be going on in that area. So you want to make sure they stand out. And realistically, I don't put the home address on all of my signs. Number one, because, like my signs, I try and reuse over and over for the different listings. And even if I do, typically what I'm doing is I'm taking some like tape, white tape, and I'm using permanent marker, and then I'm putting that on the tape. So that way afterwards I can remove the tape and still use my sign. But even still, I'm not really doing that. I'm just most of my signs are just directional, getting people there. But then if I get to like, if there's not a lot of traffic or something like that, or where people are going to be driving slow, then I will put the address on there. But if it's like a busy thing where people are flying and driving real fast, usually they're not going to be able to see the address that quickly anyways. So I'm not too worried about that. But, I get that question asked a lot. Like, do my signs need to have the home address on them? Just use your best judgment. Mine don't always have that, but if they do, I make sure it's on kind of a removable piece of tape. So that way I can reuse my signs afterwards. Okay, let's see. And then a feather flag, I do usually just have a single feather flag that goes in right at my actual open house, like in the yard. that's like, hey, you've made it. It also has more of my branding on it. And by the way, all of my directional signs have my branding on it as well. That's something I would recommend you look into. Build a Sign is great for that. You can design your own sign on like Canva, and then send that over to Build a Sign, have them print out the directional open house signs for you. Yeah, signs should have your phone number on them. That's another good point. So that I do have my phone number on my signs. So like I said, because that doesn't change. So that's not something that I have to with the home address, put tape or something like that. You can put your phone number on all of your signs. And I highly recommend it, because if people do get lost, or if they're like, I don't know what the address is, at least they can stop, pick up the phone, call you, and you can kind of explain how to get to where you're at, right? So yeah, definitely have your branding, have your phone number on them. Make sure like the color, you don't have to necessarily because open house signs aren't usually going to be huge. They're not like really, really big signs. So you may not have a ton of space on them, but your branding, your phone number, of course, if you got to put your brokerage information on there as well. So cool. All right. Let's see here. Pam also says, I give something of value, even if it's cheap. I do handouts often, such as reduced deals I find, always keeping an eye open for deals, such as hand sanitizer, dollar store items for kids, etc. And I put my small branded sticker on it. I will look today for deals on discounted Halloween for next year. Great suggestion, Pam. I mean, I think we've got something here a little bit further down once we're at, during the open house, where we talk about having just things to give out to people besides just like the flyers or whatever, having like almost essentially like a party favor, right? That people can take with them. It's just those little touches that's going to make all the difference. And so the next thing, bring a sign-in sheet, create and bring a sign-in sheet, or have a digital one ready, right? So like you have your iPad where people can sign in, or have like an actual printed out sign-in sheet. So that's important. You also, just depending on kind of traffic, can have a feedback form. So actually in Agent Flight Academy, during this lesson, we have all of these resources printed out. These are all the downloadable resources, but we've got like a feedback form where, if you can give them to each of your seller or buyers as they come through the door, potential buyers, and you say, hey, grab this as you're walking through, use this to write some notes on it. I would really love to be able to collect this from you, just so I can have some more, better feedback for my client, for my seller. And then also, it's going to ask for their information on there, at least just like their name and email, right? It'll ask for their phone number too, but a lot of times maybe they don't want to put that. So you have to kind of coach them and say, hey, look, I'd really love to get your information, just so I can follow up with you. I'm not going to spam you. Your information's safe with me. You might have to kind of coach them up on that. But having a feedback form might also be a good suggestion in replacement of an open house sign-in sheet. Food and drinks. Make sure you have food and drinks kind of thought through. And we're not talking like you have to, bring a lunch or dinner, but, light snacks, hors d'oeuvres, like whatever you want. The more personalized, the better. I mean, like if there's like a nice bakery down the street, if there's like a certain like local thing that you can incorporate into your food selection, that's great. Drinks, unless it's like specifically like an event where you want to have, some kind of like adult beverages, usually drinks is just like water, maybe if you want to have some sodas or things like that. But I'm not usually serving like alcohol or anything like that at a open house. And so unless it's like a specific like open house event and like a themed event or something special like that, it's usually just, and then, it could be cookies, but again, that's what everybody does. And so the more that you can personalize this and do something different that makes you stand out, the better off you'll be. Okay. Light music. Don't have an open house and then just have it be completely dead silent when people walk through the door. That's one of the, easiest things you can do. Just bring a Bluetooth speaker, put it on just some, light music. Nothing, a lot of times it doesn't even have words. Like what I'll put in, it'll be like lo-fi beats, or it'll just be something like that, just in the background to kind of have something so it's not completely quiet in the house. And then door knocking prior to your open house. And so I at least like to door knock 5 to the left, 5 to the right, and 10 across. And realistically, what I'm doing is, we have this as kind of like a script in Agent Flight Academy. We talk about, the safety message. And I just go through and I say, hey, Mr. and Miss Neighbor, thank you so much. Or I don't say thank you. I say, hey, Mr. and Miss Neighbor, I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be holding an open house down the street. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, no, I'm not interested or whatever. Sometimes they'll, hear you out. And even if they say, hey, I'm not interested, say, no worries. I just wanted to actually let you know because we're going to have probably a little bit of an increase in traffic. So if you got any kids or anything like that, that might be, playing in the streets, there are going to be probably more cars coming through here than usual. And, they might be driving slowly, not really paying attention as much because they're looking for the house. And so I just wanted to give you that heads up. And so a lot of times that'll kind of catch them off guard. They're like, oh, well, that's really thoughtful of you. And then they might even ask about the open house or might want to come down to it, right? So that's kind of an angle or an idea that you can use when you're door knocking just to make it seem less salesy, right? And you can even do things where you offer to open up the house 30 minutes or early just for neighbors, right? And so you can say, hey, look, the open house starts at this time, but we're actually opening it just to neighbors 30 minutes before. So you can be the first to see it and you don't have to worry about all the other traffic that's going to be coming through it. So that's another little thing you can do. All right. Visit the comparable listings. This is another important one. So I like to visit them beforehand, right? Because it makes you seem so much more professional if you are holding an open house and let's say there's 3-4 other houses in the neighborhood. If you can, if you visited those open houses or those other listings prior to your open house and you can reference them directly, right? Like you can say, yeah, this house is great, but based on what you're telling me, actually I walked through this one, earlier today or early this week or whatever. And, this one actually might fit you really well. Why don't I, give you some details or why don't I set up a showing for you so we can go check it out later? But either way, the fact that you will have known more about the listings in the area more so than just that one open house they're coming through makes it you seem like the expert. You can also just, reference that like to the seller, like let's say that, the seller's asking for feedback. A lot of times when what else is available, it's going to be way more clear if they're asking the right price, if their home is as clean as the others. If you're just going to that one home and that's all that you have for reference, it's really hard to give accurate feedback or give any good amount of feedback because you don't have anything to base it from for the most part. You might be able to do a CMA and look at, numbers online, in the MLS, but it's a lot different than when you actually step foot in the house. So go step foot in a lot of houses, especially, if you're going to host an open house, because when people come through, you'll just sound different by having gone through a bunch of extra homes. All right. During the open house. So now here's when the actual open house is taking place. You're going to want to arrive early, and I like to park away from the home, right? Especially if it's a weird driveway. I want to encourage people to come up to the property, not be scared away from it. Sometimes I'll even leave just the front door open, right? And just kind of be hanging out inside the house, but have the door open so people can just kind of walk through and kind of see what's going on in there. The biggest thing I would say is just make sure that the house feels very inviting, right? So because you'll even see it sometimes, people will slowly creep by the house and they kind of look and, they're unsure if they should come in or not, and if the house is not welcoming, they'll probably keep driving off, right? Whereas if there's something that, you can do to make it seem more inviting, more welcoming, whether it's, something inside the house, maybe streamers or just something that looks kind of interesting, catches their attention, or they can drive and see that the door is open and kind of look into the house. Sometimes you'll get people that may have, not stopped before. They'll stop on the street and decide to come in, right? So that's the important part there. Arrive early, park away from the home, make sure you're not blocking the house, the view of the house or anything like that. Take out trash and bring air freshener / candles. If you're bringing a candle, make sure you've, asked the seller if that's okay with them. Because, obviously, and then also you don't want to leave a candle on, and forget that it's there or something like that. But just do be aware that there may be houses where you walk into them and there's an odor, and you have to be prepared to kind of like combat that and fix that. So maybe it's, bringing an air freshener that actually, you set up. Maybe it's just having spray with you or something. But then also, like, sometimes it can just be a trash issue. Maybe they forgot to take the trash out before the open house started. So be prepared that if you need to take out trash, or also, like, if you are having a lot of food, drinks, and a lot of people are coming through, you may have to take out the trash in between while people are there. Setting the temperature to a comfortable setting. Don't show a house where, it's either too cold or too hot. Make sure it's in the 70 degree range or something. If it's in the summer, low 70s. If it's in the winter, I don't know what's comfortable in the, maybe in the 60s or something like that. So it's not too cold. But yeah, just have it be comfortable. If there's a fireplace, turn the fireplace on, anything like that, that's going to, set the mood, make it seem a little bit more special. Blow off the walkway / patio. So this is why I bring a little, mini blower. It's electric, just an electric DeWalt blower. And so that way I can just kind of blow off any leaves that might be on the front porch. Also the walkway leading up to it, the back patio, I can blow off all the leaves there. So it just looks the best and is the most inviting for people. While you're there, and especially like maybe, either before, I like to take a little bit of a video or even go on a live stream beforehand. And then even while people are there, I don't think it's a bad thing to take video or even live stream while you have, guests coming through, and just showing that, hey, there's traffic here. Like, I'm working this thing. It will make a difference when people see that you're in your element, like, all of your sphere of influence on social media. They're like, oh my gosh, Kyle's, doing an open house right now, and it's just top of mind. It makes people aware of what you do. And when you get people through the door, that's important too, because yeah, you can live stream or you can kind of take a video of when the house is empty and nobody's there, just to show off the house, but you can show off your expertise and your skills by showing when people are there, especially if you have a lot of people there, right? Like, just, it doesn't have to be a long video, but just something that shows like, hey, we got traffic through this thing. Ask guests to sign in and for feedback. So of course, we talked about that earlier. Now, after the open house. So this is important. So this is also, once you've completed the open house, you hopefully have a lot of, feedback forms that you can now compile, or maybe you have your sign-in sheet with leads on it, emails and phone numbers, and you want to input those into your CRM, either your CRM, or if you have a database, a spreadsheet, or whatever you use to keep organized with all of your people. You're going to want to make sure that you input all of those people that came through, and you don't forget about them, right? So now the next thing that you're going to do is send a follow-up email. Usually I'll send a follow-up email like pretty much immediately that day, like afterwards, to say, hey, it was so great seeing you at the open house. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'm here if you have any questions. I hope you don't mind, but I'd love to reach out to you early this week just to see, if you've had more time to think about it and if there's anything else I can do to help, right? And so that'll be like immediately after. And then, of course, usually if I'm hosting an open house on the weekend, I'm going to follow up on Monday specifically and say like, hey, how's things going? What did you think? Just really try and reconnect with the person. And just, if there is anything new that I can reach out and talk about, I definitely will let them know that. Like, hey, I ended up going to a listing with another person who came through the open house after the open house. We saw this house. It was awesome, and actually I just wanted to tell you about it because you might like it. And, whatever you can do to kind of just bridge the gap there and make it relevant of why you're following up with them again on Monday. I think that's important. All right, clean up and lock the home. That's of course very important. You don't want the seller coming back to their house and being like, oh my gosh, the agent, that did the open house, they left my house unlocked or whatever. And then usually you're going to turn off the majority of the lights, but you just want to find out from the seller or the listing agent what they want you to do to lock up that house, right? So just make sure you're clear on that. And then once it's all done, you've, gotten back to your office or your house, whatever, you want to send the seller and or the listing agent the outcome and feedback report, right? So this can be something as simple that you create where it's just literally like, how many people came through the door, what their feedback was, all that kind of stuff, just in general, your thoughts of it. So like if you saw anything that could be fixed or whatever, you're going to want to let them know that. But just letting the listing agent, if you held it, or if you did an open house for somebody else, or if it's your seller, letting them know the same day how things went is very important. So here we go. We got Kyle, do you use the KV Core Open House app? I do not. So I don't use the KV Core Open House app. I know that it's fantastic. It's nothing that against it. It's just for me, I am using the feedback forms that we have, that's actually in Agent Flight Academy. But so you'll see it, if you're in that course, we've got these feedback forms. I like to use something like that. But I do know a lot of agents use that Open House app. And it obviously, puts your contacts right into the CRM. That's obviously saves you a step. You can have, triggers based off of that KV Core app. Plus, I mean, the cool thing about having an app, or like if you're using like a digital open house sign-in, then, one of the drawbacks of using like a paper sign-in sheet is sometimes you'll get people that don't want to put their information along with a bunch of other people's information. And so if it's individualized and they're putting their information in on an app, and nobody else can see it other than you, that you might get a little bit better of a response for that. So let's see here. Yeah, and the other cool thing too is, you can have kind of like a resource that basically, it's like a giveaway. Hey, that way you're not just asking for something, but you're also giving them. So you say, look, I'd love to, get your information so I can follow up with you, but also I'm going to share with you, as long as you put your email in here, a copy of my XYZ, right? Real estate terminology, whatever, dictionary, or, 5 pros and cons of buying a house in my market, or whatever, right? Like you can basically have the app send that to the person as, a benefit for giving them or giving you their information. So thinking in those terms is definitely going to give you a lot better success with collecting information than if you're just trying to ask them like, hey, give me your information, so I can follow up with you. Like that's not necessarily the best call to action. Some people will do it just because, they're at your open house and they feel, compelled to do it. But most of the time, if you have something that's more of a, reason why, maybe it's even like you're doing a giveaway or a raffle at that open house and you say, hey, look, we're going to do a raffle after the open house. And, I just want to be able to notify you if you win, right? Like something like that. So that way you're prepared. So, all right, well, hey, that brings us to the end of the checklist here. So you can see here, this is one of the lessons or one of the downloadable resources that's in our Agent Flight Academy course. And so again, that course is now available as of today. We just launched it. If you go to agentflightacademy.com, you can pick it up for under $150 right now. Super cheap. It's over 10 hours of video lessons. Plus we've got 38 downloadable resources on there, including our buyer and listing presentation, including this open house checklist that I just went through, and so many more other different resources that you're going to get as well. But it's been a lot of work. I'm super excited to put it out there to the world. And I know that it will help agents. Like I say, any agent within your first couple of years, this is going to definitely be a benefit because it's going to give you a lot of different things that you're going to need to get set up and get established in your business. So that being said, guys, I'm looking here if we got any more comments. Doesn't look like we do. We just got Dagmar from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Give you a little shout out. What's going on? Good to see you on the stream. But yeah, we are going to go ahead and shut this down today. But if you got any questions, definitely reach out to me. And hopefully we'll see you in the Agent Flight Academy here soon. And we've already got a lot of people. I'm actually looking at my email right now. We got a lot of people signing up for it. So it's going to be really exciting. But if there's anything I can do, we'll talk to you then. I'm happy to do it, and have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you again next Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.